Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. It is a beautiful day here in South Florida and today we're going to be talking about sugar apples, also commonly called annona or also sweet sop. But before we get into today's video, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn notifications on, and if you like this video, give it a big thumbs up. This fruit is a tropical variety of a custard apple and it grows great here in South Florida. They're absolutely delicious and super easy to grow. So today I'm going to walk you through how I grow my tree behind me, how I get it to produce lots and lots of fruit, and how to manage any pests that come along with it. Sugar apple trees tend to max out in height around 20 feet tall, but just like other types of trees, they can be pruned to be even smaller than that. However, even though the tree doesn't end up being very tall, it can become very wide. As you can see, this tree in my yard is planted on one side, yet it branches out the entire gap between the two other trees. Sugar apple trees do best in full sun or partial shade. As you can see, this one is in between my rose apple tree and my lychee tree, so it gets partial shade throughout the day, but it still makes an amazing crop. Although the trees are pretty forgiving when it comes to lighting requirements, the most important thing about planting them is making sure that they have well-draining soil. With proper conditions, these trees can grow very fast and produce their first fruit in just about 2 to 3 years. However, a lot of people struggle with getting the flowers to pollinate, and therefore they don't get quite as many fruits as I have on my tree. And that's because sugar apple trees are only pollinated by one insect, and it's not a honeybee. The animal that actually pollinates sugar apples are these little sap beetles. In order to keep a healthy amount of sap beetles around, you need to have both food and shelter for them year-round. So the easiest way is to just toss old fruit at the base of the tree and leave a couple shrubs or weeds near the base of the tree so that they have both shelter and food. However, if you're trying to have a neat yard and you have an HOA, that's just not possible. Fortunately, there's another solution. You can hand pollinate the flowers. All sugar apple flowers go through a transformation. They first start off opening just slightly, and this is a female flower. If pollinated, it becomes a fruit. But if it's not pollinated, within 24 hours, it opens completely and it's filled with pollen, and this is a male flower ready to pollinate other female flowers. When hand pollinating, the first thing you need to do is locate a male flower. Now remember, this is the final stage of the flower, so it's never going to become a fruit, so you can go ahead and remove it from the branch. Then, once you have your flower picked, just go ahead and set it up over a bowl or a cup or any sort of dish, and you're going to remove the petals. After that, you can go ahead and scrape all the little pieces of pollen outside of the flower and into the bowl. And once you have all of the pollen removed, then you can go ahead and just lightly tap on the dish to make it all go to one side. And with any sort of paintbrush, or in this case, I like to use a Q-tip, you can go ahead and collect up all those pollen pieces, and then you're ready for the next step, which is finding the female flower. After locating a female flower, the first thing you want to do is break off one half of one of the petals. This just lets you know that you've already hand pollinated this one. That way, if you have multiple flowers, you don't get confused. Then all you need to do is go ahead and take your Q-tip or your paintbrush and collect the pollen from the male flower and stick it up inside the female flower and twirl it around until it's nice and lightly coated. Then when you go out to check, in just a couple days, it'll become a fruit. Now that we've talked about pollination, it's time to talk about fertilizing. The tree will grow and produce fruit whether you fertilize or whether you don't. But especially if you're growing in a container, a good fertilizer will help you get bigger fruit and more of them. So what I like to use is this Alaska fish fertilizer right here. If you look on the back, it tells you how much to use for every gallon of water. Depending on how big your tree is, you'll use more or less. For this fertilizer, it says that you can apply it every 3 weeks during the growing season, but I find that the sugar apple trees don't actually need that much, so I tend to do it about every 8 weeks. So every 8 weeks, I'll add the recommended dosage, and it seems to give me a great harvest every year. Now that I've walked you guys through how to get your fruit, the next most important thing is how to keep your fruit, so we're going to talk about the pests. Aphids and mealybugs are two pests that love sugar apples. In my experience, the easiest way to get rid of them is by mixing a gallon of water with 2 tablespoons of dish soap and then spraying it on the tree. Just remember, when you're spraying your tree, make sure that you do it in the afternoon. That way it doesn't burn the leaves on the tree. And do it on a day that it's not supposed to rain, otherwise it's going to be absolutely useless. But there is another pest for this kind of tree that can totally decimate your crop, so it's important that you know about it. It's called the annona seed borer. Fortunately, I've never had a problem with these, but they attack the young fruits and lay their eggs inside of the young seeds. And that means that they will totally decimate the fruit before it ever has a chance to ripen. Fortunately, if you run into this pest, the solution is easy, just time consuming. You have to individually bag each young fruit before they can lay the eggs. Now that we've gone over the basics on where the best place is to plant your tree, how to pollinate your tree, how to fertilize your tree, and the common pests, it's time to harvest. Sugar apples that are too young to be picked will be hard and green and the scales will be really tight together. But once they start to mature and are ready to be picked, they'll lighten in color and the scales will start to spread like this. Sugar apples hold very firmly onto the branch that they're growing on. So what I like to do is I hold them in one hand and I take a pair of clippers in the other and I cut it off the branch closest to the fruit that I possibly can. After sitting on the counter for a couple days, the fruit will become soft enough that you can pull it apart with your hands. Then you know that it's ripe and ready to be eaten. The part that you eat is the white pulp that surrounds the seeds. It has a sweet taste and a creamy texture and is absolutely delicious. Just like most of the other fruits on my account, whenever these are in season, I always list the seeds for sale on my Etsy. So if you're interested in buying one of these and growing a tree of your very own, be sure to check them out. Hopefully this helps anyone that's looking to plant a sugar apple tree, and I'm gonna try to do one of these videos for every single type of fruit in my yard, which is over 50 different kinds. So stick around and hit that subscribe button, turn notifications on, and give this a big thumbs up if you liked it. And I'll see you guys next time. Until then, get outside and see what you can find.